Welcome to Life Rebounding. I want to shift gears today and begin a new series looking at identity statements that are found in Ephesians 1. This is a series that probably began about 35 years ago when I was doing a study in Ephesians, and I came across a line in Skevington Wood's commentary where he said, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Well, that has stuck with me ever since. And then about 10 years ago, Terry Wardle tossed out a couple of comments at a conference as he was looking at some verses in Ephesians 1, like we were blessed before we were blessings, we were accepted before we were acceptable, and things like that, that just sort of stimulated the whole process a little bit more. And so what I'd like to do is look at some of those statements in Ephesians 1. And hopefully over this next series of videos, we can find some encouragement for ourselves as we look at our identity through the eyes of Christ. Now, there's a lot of forces that try and shape our identity today. I've mentioned in previous videos that I grew up on the east coast of Canada. I grew up on an island called Cape Breton, which had its own distinct microculture, separate from the rest of mainland Nova Scotia, separate from the rest of Canada, distinct from the other islands that are part of the maritime provinces. I grew up knowing that I was a Cape Bretoner. That was part of my identity. But I also grew up in a family where my name itself bears witness to the family connection. I'm Daniel James, son of James McKinnon, son of James McKinnon, son of James McKinnon. You get the idea. On my mother's side, I'm Daniel, grandson of Daniel Johnson, son of Daniel Johnson, son of Daniel Johnson. Yeah, I know my family were very original when it came to choosing names. But that gives some anchoring too to my identity, my family of origin. So you look at your geography, you look at your place of origin, be it just as Canadian, be it African, Asian, whatever the case may be. Those are things that have impact on our understanding of our identity. But as societies become more mobile and become more urban, we've become displaced from those first two sources of identity, family and place of origin, and increasingly people see their identity as being more related to their vocation. So when you ask somebody who they are, they'll identify themselves as teachers, as doctors, lawyers, as businessmen, IT technicians. I spent 40 years as a pastor. That was part of my identity. And so we look at ourselves through our vocation as shaping our identity, or as a statement about who we are. And there are other factors like life experience. There is a school of thought today that says we can choose our own identity. I happen to think it's not the healthiest way of looking at your identity, but nonetheless, there are certainly those out there who, by the way of their experiences and their choices, believe that they can choose their identity. Well, I think there's one thread that winds through all those different aspects of identity and pulls them all together in an integrated whole. And that is knowing that we are the children of God by faith in Jesus Christ, that it is His love that gives us our identity as His children. We are loved children of God, loved and longed for, valued and esteemed. We're people who are accepted and celebrated because of the love of Christ that's been poured out so abundantly upon us. And so our identity begins there. The other things can be factors within shaping it, but as we're secured in the knowledge that we are loved by God and His children, that becomes a bedrock on which our identity can be formed, which then can't be challenged by anything else, and there makes us much more secure. We were created purposefully, intentionally, and lovingly by our Creator. We were also redeemed sacrificially and intentionally and lovingly by that same Savior. And so this series is about beginning to live into our identity as Paul shapes it for us in Ephesians chapter 1, based on the love of Christ. And my prayer is that as we go through these videos together, that they may be of encouragement to you and how you may see yourself in the light of the love of God.